Hello, today we're going to be going over our Salem Hemisphere. It is a model 22 RKHL, and we are going to be starting right up front here with our tongue jack. So with our tongue jack, basically this is how we get on and off the tow vehicle, but this is also how we level the camper from front to back, basically with this switch here. You raise it or lower it. I don't want to go too far because I do have our stabilizer jacks already down. But while you're still hooked to the tow vehicle, I do like to recommend that you make sure you're level from side to side first, either by sticking a carpenter's level right beside the doorway, or they have little stick-on levels that you can put on the front and on the side of your coach. But you do want to make sure you're level from side to side first, so you might have to put some blocks down, let that tow vehicle help you get that camper onto those blocks. Once you're good from side to side, that's when you unlevel, or that's when you're going to unhook, make sure your chains, everything's unhooked in the vehicle. It goes forward, and then you're going to level front to back with this guy here. Once you're done with that, then you're going to lower your stabilizer jacks. These guys, the nice thing are motorized on a switch. I believe these guys are located right here on the front, or on the door side of the coach. This one here is going to be our front for both sides. There's one in the rear for the rear stabilizers. We are not trying to lift the camper with those guys, okay? And then our other switch right here is just a light, so if you had to hook up at night, you can kind of see. And then they do, in this little guy here, this comes off, and you got your manual crank option, so if something happened to the motor, you still have a way to operate the jack. Back behind here is going to be two 20-pound propane tanks. These guys have both been filled, minus what was used to test the propane system with. But then we're going to have our regulator here in the back. Basically, this guy does a couple of different things. One, it does regulate the amount of propane going into the coach. But two, it does also tell you what tank you're using. This little notch here tells you what tank that you are using at this time. This little window here, as you see, reads green right now because it's showing that we have propane flow, because I do have this tank on at this time. When the tank is empty, it will turn red to show you that the tank is empty. But basically, it's set up so that you can technically have both tanks on, and once that tank is empty, it will start drawing from the other tank. But you're not going to know that this tank is empty unless you come out here and look at this guy right here, because it will be reading red because it's trying to read the tank that it's pulling from. We always like to recommend just one tank on at a time, so that way you know when one of those tanks are empty. Then back behind there is going to be where our battery is located, 24 series deep cycle battery. And as we come around off to our off door side, you're going to have your propane cover right there, nice little fancy newer models. And then inside, on this side of the compartment, basically, you got your solar panel controller. This just monitors the battery. And once the battery gets below a certain level, if you're not plugged up to Sure Power, it'll allow that surge to come through from the panels to start charging the battery. Once the batteries have reached their charged, and this says, hey, we're good, then it shuts that supply off. Then up here is going to be where our battery disconnect is. Basically, you turn and pull this key out. You're only going to do this when you're storing the camper. Whenever you're towing it or hooked to Sure Power, you do want that in and in that on position. It's basically just for storing. That way, if some stuff is left on, especially mainly your 12-volt fridge, if that guy's set too high, the panels do struggle to keep that battery fully charged for the power that it's trying to pull. All right, as we come further down on our slide room, we are going to have a storage compartment. This guy is quite spacious. It kind of goes right up in there. Nice for storing like your fishing poles, or some of your bigger camping gear, your lawn chairs. A couple of different items can actually fit in this guy. I kind of do like the depth of this cabinet, or this storage space. This guy here is a little clip one that you do whenever you go to secure it. It just hooks there, pull it to release, or if you got enough force, it'll just pop loose on you. This guy here is going to be your 751 key. I did forget to show you up front, your front storage compartment key is going to be your black Bauer key for that storage compartments up front. All right, as we come around to the back side, we're going to talk a little bit more about your tires when we get to the other side where we can see them a lot better. But there is a notice sticker here. This is just to make sure that you guys do check those lug nuts at 50, 100, and 200 miles. And I will say this again in just a couple minutes when we get to the other side to talk about the tires. Next, this is where we're going to have to dump our tanks. So normally you're going to have your sewer hose on here, and then you would have this clear oboe at the end of the sewer hose that goes into the ground to dump your tanks. Basically, we like to help direct that water when we're dumping the tanks after testing. But back here is going to be your black. You're always going to dump black first, okay? That is the closed position. I just had it open. So the reason why, and there's even a warning sticker right up here. We're going to step over here to the side just real quick. Basically for the black tank flush. All right, whenever you go to hook up to the black tank flush, you have to make sure that valve is in the open position already before you start putting water to this, okay? So with the black tank flush, you're gonna hook up your sewer hose, open up your black tank valve, and then you're gonna go to hook up a hose to this. I do always like to recommend that you're gonna have a pressure regulator on the spigot first, and then go out and purchase a black hose. Black tank, black hose. It keeps it simple. From there, you're gonna hook up to there, turn it on, and then you're gonna watch and wait till you start seeing water coming out clear from this elbow piece. When that happens, then you're gonna shut the water off at the spigot, unhook from the spigot first, because there's gonna be water on the back side of this because of a hose that goes to that check valve, and that water's gotta drain out because there's no pressure to push it through that check valve. The reason why you want that pressure regulator is because that check valve is plastic. Too strong a water pressure can damage that check valve as well. All right, once you've done do that, then you would come down, you're gonna close your black, and then you're gonna open and pull your gray valve. And then you're gonna dump. It kind of helps rinse out that sewer hose for you. And then close that guy off. Make sure your cap's on during travel. Just like so. All right, so next on our little water station here is gonna be where you hook up for the city water. Once again, you're gonna have a pressure regulator at the spigot. From there, your options of an inline water filter and then your blue or white water drinking hose. Hook it up, turn it on, you're gonna be ready to use the water in the coach. Even the hot side. Nice thing is you have an on-demand hot water heater. We'll talk about that in just a second. Now on the other side is gonna be where you would fill the fresh water tank. Pretty much the portable water that you would take with you because your campsite doesn't have a water source. Once again, I am going to recommend that you do use a pressure regulator on the spigot because this is pressure filled. And then we're gonna have to backtrack for 2 seconds because I forgot to show you where that drain was. But basically, you're gonna have two hoses that just come out. I think this one was underneath our slide room also. Yep, right there. So you got one hose here that's empty, and then you got another hose on the other side. One is considered your breather hose so that the air has a way to escape as you're filling the tank. And then the other one is the overflow. So once the tank has been filled, the water will start coming out of there. But I always do like to recommend that you would read the monitor panel while you're filling that fresh tank. You don't want to continuously overfill it because over time it can cause damage. And then you got the other one down here with the valve. You would just turn that upright to drain the fresh water tank. I believe have a little bit of water in there at this time. All right, then we're gonna have the outside shower. The options of hot and cold water from here. A lot of times people will use it to kind of either give the dog a bath, spray the kids because they don't want to listen, or whatever you want to use it for. Basically in here, the only thing there is really to kind of show you is your switch here. Basically this is to shut the unit off completely. If this switch is in the off position, the control panel inside is inoperable. This does have to be on for the controller inside to work. And then they do have a little pressure relief valve here to relieve pressure. Usually that's going to be more of a wintertime kind of concept on that guy. All right, so coming around, we're going to have our furnace. We'll try not to block this guy. You want it's your intake and the exhaust. But we do like to recommend getting mud dauber screens to put over these guys to help keep wasps and mud daubers out of here from potentially creating nests that can cause issues. And shop rates are not cheap at this time. You got the options for an observational backup camera. And then right there to the right of that is where it has the option, an aftermarket option for a ladder. Basically it telescopes up. It's got two hooks that hooks right onto it, and you're able to get on your roof to inspect the roof. Okay? You're only trying to go up there and inspect it. We're not trying to go up and have NASCAR parties, as fun as that sounds, but we want to make sure that sealant hasn't created air bubbles and have popped, or over time, this sealant will start to dry out and create cracks. When that happens, you want to clean that lap sealant. You can put down new over the top of it. It is only recommended you do that 2 to 3 times before it is, you would want to remove it completely and put fresh lap sealant all the way down. Then we got our spare tire. Your options here for satellite hookup or campground cable. If you're using a campground cable, you do have to turn off the TV antenna booster, and I will show you where that's located once we have stepped inside. All right, so come around to the other side over here. This guy up here is actually so you're able to take the TV from inside and bring it out here if you wanted to. Then you got your 110 plug to plug it in and then hook it up to this guy. Here's our rear stabilizers. Bring them guys down, bring them up. So next in it, we got our guy here for basically our barbecue grill. When you go to put this guy on, basically it comes in at an angle, sits right on that guy. It is a lot easier when the barbecue grill ain't on there. And then you would slide the barbecue grill onto these guys here on each side. And there's little R keys to lock it into place so it wouldn't potentially slide off on you as you're grilling. I do have the griddle top in our front storage compartment. It is always recommended that I recommend you get on YouTube, look up how to season a Blackstone. Basically, it'll tell you how to season that griddle before you start to use it. It does need to be seasoned. Then you got a quick connect sprayer here, hooked to the cold water only. Put that guy out of my way. So when we go to hook up the grill, basically you're going to have your hose that quick connects in here, up top, and then down here is where it's going to quick connect in here. Basically you push that back, push it to lock it in, and then there's this little knob down here that you're going to turn to allow the propane flow to come through. On top of that, it also locks this into place so it wouldn't potentially come unhooked. And then also while we're down here, it says low point drain, so those guys, okay, I'm going to steal this here for just a second from our camera lady. So, because it's a little trickier to get to. But basically right here is where our low point drains are located. You got the blue for cold, red for hot. Basically, you're going to use these guys whenever you're done camping. I always like to recommend opening these guys up, opening up a faucet inside. As you go home, that air is going to blow through, push any excess water out, so you wouldn't have any water that becomes stagnant or bad. They are also used when you go to winterize your coach. Basically, you want to try to get all the water out of the coach. So you open up those guys. I recommend you go through, open every faucet, hot side first, then cold, to help get most of that water out. And then I wouldn't hurt if you used your water pump to turn on that water pump for a few minutes. Just try to push any of that excess water out of there. And then from there, you'll close off those low point drain caps. You're gonna hook your water pump to the antifreeze and then start winterizing. We'll show you that once we step inside. Then we got our little mini fridge guy out here. This is 110 only, so you do have to be plugged into Sure Power for this to have power. And then you got your adjustment setting right up top. All right, so we got our tires here. Basically, like I was saying, you want to make sure you torque the lug nuts at 50, 100, and 200 miles. These guys are to be torqued to 100 foot-pounds. I usually like to recommend that usually once you leave the campground, the first place we are having to stop is the gas station to refuel before we head home. Well, while you're refueling, you can check your lug nuts. You're knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone. Then you also always want to keep them topped off to their max PSI level, which is actually nice because these are the Goodyear Endurance, so they actually tell you in big letters what the PSI level is. So it is 65 PSI. All right, I do got our outside speakers on right now, so you can hear those guys operating and working. You got the little lights on our side. Those are tied into your awning lights. So whenever you turn on your awning lights, those guys will automatically come on. You got this little hook here, so if you got a dog, you're able to hook them up to with a leash. And then when we come up front, once again, we got our switch for our front stabilizer jacks here. I got our griddle that I've left in the wax paper that they shipped it in. Our manual crank for the tongue jack. Our manual crank for the stabilizers. And then you got a light switch here that is controlled with a center button. And then you got a light switch right here is actually going to be for your front little cap lights that are on there. Okay, So next we're gonna go over our entry door here. That's gonna be our purple key. Basically for the door handle. You're gonna put it in, turn it to the right, it locks the handle. For the deadbolt, it goes to the left to lock the deadbolt. You have to go back up and down to pull the key out. If you go to turn this to the right, thinking you're locking your deadbolt, but you're able to pull that key out, it shows you did not lock your deadbolt. Okay, so then next we're gonna have our steps here. One thing you do have to note is this door does have to be open as far as possible. It doesn't open, or it doesn't go all the way open because of our awning arm. But basically, this guy will come in. This is the reason why right here. This door is not open to the proper, this guy will hit it. And then basically it will lock right in place. You got these guys right here, so you're able to adjust your feet if you need to. A lot of times people will keep them all the way down, and then they will bring this guy down, and then we'll adjust these feet accordingly. The reason for that is because you want to have this as flat with the threshold as possible. Too much of an elevation on here can cause both issues with the screen door, the entry door, and it will even start to rip up this grip tape. All right, as we step inside, right at our entry door is going to be our fire extinguisher. And then we're going to have our control panels. We got 2 control panels. So this one up top is going to be for your on-demand water heater. Basically, turn it off, turn it on. Right now, the water that's in there, it's reading it's 77 degrees. You can adjust this temperature. It goes as high as 122. So when I go to turn that water on, it will start to fire up. And actually, let me go ahead and I'm going to show you. I'm going to turn some water on real quick just so I can show you guys what it's going to do. So, as you see, our shower head comes on, the fan, and then our flame icon lit up. Okay? And then from there, as you see, it's already gaining its temperature. As it gets closer to the temp, it does slow down so we can try to read the temperature, and then keeps going, then it'll start adding more heat or more BTUs to or propane to get it to the temperature. And now I'm going to shut it off, and you guys can see what it will do. So once you shut this guy off, that fan is going to continue to show because it's trying to cool it down before it shuts down. That's a safety feature. Once it feels that it's got to a proper, safe level of temp, it shuts off. Next, we're going to have our main control panel. Shows you your freshwater tank. Shows you your battery status. Then you got your black and gray 1. You do not have a gray 2 or an auxiliary. As you see right there, it does say tanks vary by model. Next, we're going to have the water pump. You're only using the water pump if you're using the fresh water tank. If you're hooked to city water, you do not need that guy. Your tank heaters, these guys are little 12-volt heating pads that are on the bottom of the tanks. They got built-in thermostats, so once they sense that the tanks have gotten below a certain level or a certain temp, they will automatically come on and automatically shut off. But this does have to be on, and it does have to have battery power to operate. Then we got our lights here. This is going to be for our awning light, and this is going to be for our inside lights. This here is to bring our awning in or out. I don't want to do that today. We've been having some brief gusts of wind. Too strong a wind can damage both the awning and the camper if you're not careful. They do like to recommend that if the camper is being unoccupied, you guys should have that awning brought in. And it does have a tilt feature, so it's meant to be as a shade protectant. Then our other one here is to bring our slide room in or out. All right, so then we're going to switch over here to the other side. Basically on each side, you're going to have a little closet area on each side. You do also have storage up above. Each side comes with own individual reader lights. Thank you, Miss Camera Lady.
You're very welcome.
And then each side also has a 110 and USB hookups on both sides. Those cubbies there are nice and convenient. They're designed so that if you're using a CPAP machine, you're able to put those guys in that back corner. But you are also able to plug in your USB charging port device or charging cords to charge your phones or laptops or whatever you're messing with over there as well. You got a little bit of storage underneath. Then you got your curtain to close off the bedroom area. And then we have our recliners. So with the recliners on each side, the handles are tucked in there a little bit, but you got your handle here that you would pull to recline. And this guy does actually recline pretty far out, almost to a bed-like position. It stretches out pretty good. These cup holders on the outside, you gotta find a sweet spot, but you double tap twice and it'll get the lights to come on there. Little ambiance lights underneath, so like a little movie theater setting. Like I said, gotta find a sweet spot. Behind there is a fire exit window. Inside here you got where you like to try to keep your remotes, but you also got a US charging station here to hook up and charge your phones as well. Then we're going to have our nice luxurious 12 volt fridge that does like to drain your battery, just to be honest. But basically you got your freezer section here, and then down below the fridge we have our manual and everything in there as well. Basically you'll see extra parts in that bag. Basically the factory doesn't use all the parts that's in the bag. Sometimes they like to use their own screws, so you'll sometimes find those extra parts. Everything is put together correctly. But down here is where you're going to basically set your settings for the fridge. So at this setting here, when I did my temperature check reading, I believe it was reading about 31 degrees. So it was really good and cold, so you can adjust it to maybe right about the middle. Will keep you right in a good safe zone. And then if you're doing the off-grid camping, so you're trying to use that battery to keep everything going, as you see, these two settings here is off-grid mode. Basically it's going to keep that fridge right below what they call a food danger zone, which would be 40 degrees. But it basically keeps it right below that level, and then that way it's not pulling as much battery power as well. And then you turn it all the way downward to turn it off. I do always like to recommend turn it off so it doesn't hurt or drain your battery. Next we got the microwave. The microwave is usually pretty self-explanatory. We do like to say set the time on that guy. You guys go out, you come back, you see the timer is not set. That goes to show you that there was a power failure at the campsite. You do want to look into and see if it was from the campsite itself or from the electric company. Then we got our hood range for our fan and our light. This guy opens up. It is not a glass stovetop. Basically, you're going to turn this guy on, turn this ignite. Normally, I would say this guy would go out in about 8 to 10 seconds, because a lot of times I have the tanks turned off, but the tanks is on right now, so that was just going to continuously get going. This guy here is also going to spark, is the spark igniter for the oven. Same concept. You're going to turn it to the flame icon, keep it pressed and held in, and then turn to light. Usually if you angle this glass just right, you can usually see that spark, which I am not getting that good angle on it. Oh, there it is. It is lit already. Like I said, it's all about trying to find that right angle. Once it's been lit, you hold it in for 5 to 7 seconds, sometimes 10, and then light. Set your temperature, and it'll be ready to rock and roll. You do have this switch here on the one side. It lights up these guys. And then 2, it lights up these, but it's also the light for the oven as well. And then you do got storage down here, basically for your pots and pans. With that drawer, I will tell you right now, no cast iron whatsoever. Okay? Those drawer guides can only handle so much weight. Cast iron skillets are too heavy for these drawers, okay? And then you always want to try to find pots and pans that is considered to be lightweight. Okay? I know with most Dometic, it was like your pans couldn't be no longer than larger than 10 inches in diameter, and then Suburban was 8 inches. I honestly do not know the the size for a Furrion, but I'm going to say probably go with the sizes of the Dometic and keep it around 10 inches in diameter. Sounds like we got someone trying to race. Then we got our storage up above. This light should be on also. This light does operate off your main light switch. More storage down, or more drawers there, storage underneath. This guy here is going to be your furnace. It is just single ducted, so it just blows straight into the coach just from here. There is a little window in here too. When it is operating, fired, and lighting up, you can actually look and see that flame is going in there. And then right here is going to be where our fuse control panel box is located. Ow, short space. Ooh.
All right.
Dead leg. Basically, everything that runs on 110 or Sure Power is going to be on your breakers. Everything that runs off the battery is on your fuses here, and it is labeled for you. The 240s is for the converter, which charges your battery. Those fuses are designed so that if for some reason someone hooked the battery up backwards, it would blow those fuses and not damage the converter. It's like getting hit in the knee from the doctor. All right, so next we're going to have our bathroom area. Basically, you got your door here that is magnetic to shut, just like so. Then we got our light switch right here on the inside. You got your fan up top. Open this guy by hand. Turn it on when you're using it. Then we're going to have our shower. So your shower has this button here to reduce the flow of water. With your on-demand water heater, you don't necessarily have to use that. I would say maybe use it if you were running on the fresh water tank, so that way you can try to conserve as much of your water in that reservoir as possible. But then you got your basic hot and cold option there. It's actually one of those nicer shower heads on that, in my opinion. Then we got our sink, the toilet here. With the toilet, you lightly press on this pedestal so you can have water to do your business. All the way down it's going to flush. And it will naturally put water back in the bowl of that toilet for you. Basically so that seal doesn't get dry rotted or brittle. When that happens, the smell can start to come through. It won't hold water in the toilet, things along that nature. I do also like to recommend, if you take non-stick cook spray, spray the bowl of this toilet. Helps everything slide down easier, makes it easier clean for the cleaner. All I say is don't get bathroom Pam confused with kitchen Pam, because they are going to be pretty close together.
Pams don't like to be confused with each other.
Pams don't like to be confused with each other. Hey, if you want to buy the Walmart brand, by all means buy it. And sometimes I made a mistake and actually bought a butter one scent. You can make your toilet smell like butter if you want. It's entirely up to you.
Doubles as an air freshener.
Doubles as an air freshener if you love the smell of popcorn butter.
We'll be here all day, folks.
All day. All right, so next, basically underneath here is where your water pump is located. So this hose here is what would go into the jugs of antifreeze, or if you got a couple of gallons of antifreeze, some people will just put it in a 5-gallon bucket, so then they ain't having to swap out the gallon jugs every couple minutes. But basically, they made it a little harder to see, but there's going to be your handle here, or your knob. You're going to turn this guy upward, and then turn on the water pump, and you'll winterize your coach using your water pump on the system, or on the coach. As long as you can get all the water out of this guy, you should be able to winterize this with probably about 2 gallons of antifreeze, possibly 3. But most of your water system is all mainly here in the back, which is nice and convenient, so there isn't a whole lot of water lines that has to be for that antifreeze to travel through. And then this cover right here is what goes there, it's held together. It's held in there with 2 screws that I've also got sitting up there. All right, so while I'm also down here, we're going to go over this guy. This is going to be your LP/carbon monoxide detector. Basically, you do want to test this guy every 9 to 14 days, just by simply pushing this button. And now we're performing a test. And that's what these stickers are here for as well. And it went back to green. Just nice, good, simple test. All right, these guys have a life expectancy about 7 to 10 years. I have seen these guys go out sooner than that, okay? So that's why you do want to make sure you periodically test it. Okay? The reason why is because if that guy does start going off, we don't know what caused it to go off, but we do want to take the emergency precautions for it. The first person out the door is trying to turn off the propane canisters. The second person, if there's a second person in the coach, is trying to open up windows and get basically anything in the coach that breathes out of it, including a fish named Steve. But basically get them all out. You're going to get 50 feet away for 15 minutes, come back in. You want one person to come and check your stove. It is, because these knobs here being on the outside, it is so easy for these to accidentally get bumped and churned by a belt loop, someone just leaning on them and sliding around. It can happen. You get knuckleheaded friends that they're leaning and trying to hang out. Like basically, man, you guys have been doing pretty darn awesome, man. You guys got a luxurious camper, but right now, I got that knob pressed in, propane's just coming out. Okay, so just please be mindful of that. There are other things that can cause that guy to go off. Cleaning supplies, hairspray, animal gases. I've heard that one's been usually the main culprit in many situations I've heard about LP detector problems. But please be mindful of propane. You should always be mindful of propane. There is only two places that propane actually gets connected inside of your coach. One is going to be the stove. The other is the furnace. The LP connection for the water heater is on the outside. Although the line might travel through the coach, the connection port itself is on the outside. Next, we're going to have our thermostat. So with our thermostat, we're going to start at the beginning. So you would have your off. Give it just a second to shut off because I do have the tendency to go too fast for the system. Basically, you're going to start with fan low and fan high. In these two settings here, the air, it's just going to be just a fan that would come on. There it went. Then you got cool high and cool low. These two settings, the air conditioner will just continuously run and not shut off. Doesn't matter what you got this guy set to, it's not going to shut off. Then you got cool low auto and cool high auto. That's where pretty much it would come on and off to your desired set temperature. And then the last option, if you push this again, would be heat and then off. Heat is the furnace, and it is propane only. All right, then we got our pantry area. As you see, our light just came on with the moisture sensor setting. And then we got our dinette area here. Basically, this guy will break down into a bed as well by lifting these cushions. You pick up the table, remove the legs, they just lay on the floor. And then the table will basically sit right here on this lip edge on both sides. And then from there, use these cushions here to fill in that table space. There is also storage underneath each one. You're also able to access it a lot easier by lifting up the cushions, and you can actually lift this panel up if you wanted to. Alright, so we heard our radio on the outside. That was going to be speaker zone 2. And we got the remote for that as well. Speaker zone 1, just the speakers that's on here. Okay, there is other options to where if you pull this guy out, you're able to hook your TV up to it. You can hook a DVD player up to it, mainly for the sound on that. But this little guy here is going to be the remote for him. Our bigger remote here is going to be for our TV. Basically turn that guy on. This shouldn't be locked in. So this guy does have a strap right here that you would pull to release this when it was locked into place.
I was going to be out about $2,000 in repairs.
And we're going to go back to the back of that TV here in just a second. That's why I went ahead and kind of pulled it out. So, when we get to a new area, especially if you're not near the St. Louis area, you're going to have to scan for channels. To do so, you like to press the menu button. I push the arrow key back one time. Takes me to channels. From there, we're trying to pick up air, and then we're going to auto scan. Go down auto scan. It'll say start scan. Push. Try to go back. Oh, nope. I pushed the button. Now it's going to start scanning. Okay. So while it's doing a scan, because you don't want to try to stop the scan because she gets kind of temperamental when you do so, we're going to go ahead and talk about that battery or that TV antenna booster I was mentioning outside. Basically, it's going to be that guy right here. As you see, that green light is on. There's this button right above my finger. You push this button, it'll shut that signal off. Right now we're scanning for channels, so I don't want to leave it off for too long. Basically, though, when that switch is in the on position, What it's doing is it is considering the antenna as the primary signal source. What we got to do is shut that signal source off. So by turning that booster off, it'll allow that cable signal feed to come through. And then in your settings, instead of choosing the air, you'll swap it to cable. And then you'll scan for channels. As you just hear it locked in, and then you got your guy here to pull the release. I'm going to put these guys so that you see are going to be right inside here. This one I'm going to leave out because I'll have to turn the TV back off when we're done. So inside here is going to be most of the manuals for the appliances in the coach. Basically, the one important paper in here is going to be this one right here, the appliance info sheet. So if for some reason something gets damaged on this camper, they may ask for the serial number or model number for that appliance. Nice thing is it's on this sheet and it has it all down for you. Everything you would need. For the manual for the camper itself, okay, they no longer make paper manuals. So you have to go online and download an app. There's a sticker I've left right there on the wall so that you guys are able to see that, to download that app. From there, basically you put in your camper information, and I'm pretty sure it downloads a PDF file onto your phone for your camper specifically. This bag here I'm going to set right inside that guy right there. And it looks like we got a nice good channel search still. We picked up 43 channels. That is a good scan, especially for the distance that we are from St. Louis. A lot of times, depending on the model of the antenna, I usually only see 36 or maybe 38 channels. So as you see, we got channel 2 there. Real quick, well, I'll just show you since I still got it here, but basically go to channels and then instead switch to cable and then auto scan. No, I'm not trying. Okay. There we go. Back in track. Alright, so then from there we have made our way back to our entry door. Hopefully this video was knowledgeable and informational for you. If you guys do have questions, feel free to call us and we'll do our best to answer those for you over the phone. Before I tell you to have a good day, we do have another fire exit window right here. This one is a little different than the one on the other side. That's why I wanted to go ahead and show this to you. Basically, you're going to lift this up on both sides. This window is on a hinge, so it'll fling open. Okay? Alright, so from there, now we basically, I think I've showed you everything on your coach. Thank you and have a wonderful day.